Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
I'm Carol from Sunbury, Ohio.
I'm a Republican, but I don't care who does the job as long as the job gets done. That's why I like Sherrod Brown. He stood up to both parties on China and worked with Republicans to fight fentanyl because Sherrod fights for Ohio. That's leadership.
Paid for by Friends of Sherrod Brown.
By the time you're finished listening to this Pepsi Zero Sugar, you'll be 15 seconds closer to kickoff. Stock up now. Bengals game day is so close, you can almost taste it. Bengals watching. Better with Pepsi.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to AI Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined as always by Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
Looking forward to a conflicting evening on Wednesday after a probably irrelevant evening on Tuesday. How about you?
I'm going to need more explanation on what you've just said. I'm feeling better, though. Thank you. Why is it a conflicting evening?
Well, I suspect that there will be the usual horde of people who don't want anything bad to happen to Jurgen Klopp's new team, despite the fact Liverpool are playing for them. Not to say being conflicted, but let's say a collection of modernity.
Yeah, I get you. So Liverpool take on RB Leipzig on Wednesday night in the Champions League. Our third game in this season's campaign. Obviously wins against AC Milan and Bologna thus far. Leipzig have made an interesting start to the season, Karl. So last year, they were a little bit up and down, but managed to get a fourth place finish in the Bundesliga. In the summer, they sold Dani Olmo, making a significant profit. They sold Mohamed Simican, making a significant profit. They sold Angelino, who had been on loan with an obligation anyway. They bring in Hassan Ouedraogo, who's a young midfielder from Schalke. Antonio Nusa, the young Norwegian winger from Club Brugge, who was originally going to go to Brentford and failed a medical. Lacherel Gertrude comes in from Feyenoord to replace Simican, one of Arne Slot's former players who was linked to us in the summer. They also add Xavi Simons on loan for the second season. Arthur Vermeeren, hugely talented Belgian midfielder, comes in on loan, I believe with an option to buy. And Martin van der Voort, who they actually bought over 2 years earlier, finally joins in a £10 million move. And what we've seen from them thus far is a very promising league start with 5 wins, 2 draws, no defeats. Only 11 goals scored from 7 games, but only 2 conceded. They're currently second in the league on goal difference behind Bayern. They've won their German Cup match. They beat Essen 4-1 away. But their Champions League start, Karl, has not been impressive. So they go to Atletico Madrid in the opening game. They go 1 up on 4 minutes, end up losing 2-1. Then they play Juventus at home. They go 1-0 up, get pegged back. Then Juve go down to 10 men. Leipzig go 2-1 up. Then it's 2-2 with Vlahovic scoring, and then Conceição gets Juve the win. 10-man Juve get the win on 82 minutes. That's a disappointing outcome for Marco Rose and his men. What have you made of Leipzig so far this season? Because they look a different team in Europe than they do at home.
So I have to firstly confess that normally I would have obviously seen a fair bit of them, given that we're playing them, and I haven't this time around. Champions League highlights I've seen, and highlights from the game as well against Mainz at the weekend. They look a lot more of a more compact and safer team than I'm used to seeing with Marco Rosa in charge of anybody. That's the first thing that I would say. There are, let's say in the domestic games at least, a few similarities with Liverpool, I think, in terms of how we're playing, approaching games. It's not how I would normally associate with Rosa teams, either lining up or approaching sort of attacking and defensive and behind the ball sort of play, to be perfectly honest. I thought for a little while like their Champions League games maybe wasn't too troublesome that they'd lost those two games, because like their first three games are pretty hard if we're being honest. But actually this is a bit of a consequence of the draw that they're in, and they are actually probably one of the teams who are, you look at their fixtures and the fact they haven't got any points so far, and you think that maybe they might be one of the ones who are around that limit of the sort of 7-8 point mark where they suggest that would be enough to get into the playoffs. I should say UEFA suggested that would be enough to get into the playoffs, because they do have quite a hard collection of matches, and then probably three that they would look at and say we need to get results here. So like they've already played Atletico and Juve, as you said. They play us, Liverpool now. They play then Celtic, which they'd probably...
That's a guaranteed 3 points. Brendan Rodgers gifting that to them. Absolutely 3 points.
Inter Milan and then Aston Villa are both going to be really difficult games. Sporting will probably be a difficult game as well, but they're at home, so you'd probably fancy them to win. And then Sturm Graz away, where they would definitely expect to win and probably need to win. So,
yeah,
like 3 wins should be enough for them to be in a playoff spot, we think. But they are probably one of the ones who are like on that line.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 games that you would absolutely back them to win are Celtic and Sturm Graz. But they are both away from home. Like, their home fixtures are... I think they got the toughest draw. You know, Juve will expect to be top 4 in England this year, or in Italy this year. Atleti, obviously, that's an away, but Atleti will fancy top 4 for certain, probably 3rd. Juve will think they'll get top 4, probably top 3 in Serie A. We're a title challenger in England. Celtic are, I know they're not great, but they are the best team in Scotland. Inter will expect to win the league again in Serie A. Villa will expect, I think they expect to get top 4 again this year. Sporting expect to win the league in Portugal this year and look unbelievable thus far. And Sturm Graz are the best team in Austria at the moment. Like, that's a really, really tough run. And your 4 home games are Juve, Liverpool, Villa, and Sporting. Like, when Sporting is the quote-unquote easiest of your 4 home games, you know you've gotten screwed by the draw.
Yeah, it's not an easy one at all. And look, a little bit of that is obviously to do with the way the seedings are done and the groups and pots and blah, blah, blah. And they need to do what they're doing domestically for sort of probably 2-3 seasons in a row to get themselves regularly in the Champions League, regularly playing and at that level and all the rest of it, but bit by bit to get the better results and climb the pots. Like once you're in maybe pot 2, pot 3, then you would probably hope you're not going to get a draw like they have done more often than not. But on the other hand, if they find themselves in a really good run and they can translate that to even one surprise result in Europe, again, that probably benefits them next season sort of multiplied over, you know?
That's the thing. Like, I if they can get themselves into the playoff and then, you know, maybe they progress from there into the round of 16, that is going to help their coefficient moving forward and help them with their seeding. And maybe next year they don't get such a hard draw. It's a strong squad, though. Like, they're a club, obviously, where it almost feels like winning major silverware is a little bit secondary. Like, the purpose of the club is more to be a talent factory where they bring in elite young players, oftentimes from their own system, be that from the Red Bulls in New York or from Salzburg. They develop them and then they sell them on. When you look at the squad, you can see a lot of players here that are going to have resale value, but there are a couple that have kind of become Leipzig lifers. Peter Galaxy is obviously the prime example. He's played all 10 games this season. We'd expect him to start in goal for this one. The Van der Voort kid is the long-term hope, but he has been bought with the hope that he does really well and they sell him at a big profit. In defence, Willy Urban most likely starts. He's another one of the lifers. Castello Luqueba probably starts next to him. I would guess David Raum at left back. He's only missed one game thus far this season. They've all been fairly settled. Right back is the only position where there has been a little bit of change. Benjamin Henriks and Gertrude kind of competing for that position, but I do expect that Gertrude will start in this one. So you're looking at Gertrude, Urban, Luqueba, and Raum. It's a pretty good defence. There are some flaws to it. Luqueba's young and inexperienced and does make young defender mistakes. Urban can be a little bit slow on the turn. He can be played in behind quite easily. That's why the others need to cover for him. And David Raum is a very good player, but he is much more of an attack-minded player than a defensive-minded player. That's still a pretty strong defence. And then you're looking at Bichiabu, Henriks, and Norby, the young Norwegian kid, as sort of the depth behind them. It's a pretty decent defense. Lucas Kloisterman, who, to be fair, starts regularly in the league but hasn't started in the Champions League. He could easily start in this team. Like, they have options. They have good depth and good options.
Yeah, and when they played a back three, Noosa has started left as well. So it's, options to go from the sort of the three and be a bit more attack-minded down the flanks if they want. If they want Gertrude and Noosa as wing-backs, for example, then there's lots of versatility there as well. I mean, you mentioned Klosterman just right at the end, but he's probably the archetypal one of that, someone who's been able to play about 17 different roles for them across the years. But like you say, when you've got Orban and Klosterman and they've been there for absolutely ages, and Haidara as well has been there for ages, like these people are able to not just exchange positions game to game, but during matches as well, which allows them to be very tactically flexible.
So I want to focus on one player there. I want to focus on Castello Luqueba, who, as I look at our team, Karl, and I look at what I think Arne Slot wants to do, and I look at how his Feyenoord defence functioned, and particularly the role of Gertrude, who is a centre-back by profile, who largely played as a right-back for Arne Slot, but could play it in a number of different ways. Could play it as a traditional right-back, would often step in and form a back three, with David Hankel, the left-sided centre-back, shifting across a little bit to be the left side of the three, to push the left back on in Hartmann. He would bomb on and be much more attack-minded. He could sometimes invert into midfield and play from there. Now, our right back is obviously Trent. Trent is a completely different profile of right back to Gertrude. Trent's profile is actually a lot closer to Hartmann's profile. So I wonder, and I think that Arne Slot would like a left-footed version of Gertrude, who can be a left back, who can cover at centre back, can tuck into a back three, can play as the traditional left back and get up and down if needed, comfortable on the ball, can also step into midfield and play from there as and when needed. And I think we missed out on, I think Gvardiol is like the prototype for that. I think he would have been absolutely perfect. We missed out on him. Calafiori, I think, would have fitted really well. We missed out on him. The two names that sit above everybody else for me now for that type of role are Piero Hincapié and this kid. And when I look at the ceiling for this kid, he does look a very, very special talent. On and off the ball, he's got all the tools you'd really want. His control is fantastic. He can dribble, he can pass, he can cross. He's quick, he's good 1v1. Like I said earlier, he does make young defender mistakes. He's 21 years of age. All 21-year-olds make mistakes. But he doesn't seem to let them rattle him at all. He seems to just have a very calm head and get focused again quickly. And I do think he is someone we should be keeping a very close eye on for that left-back position, because I think he fits the model of what Arne Slot will want there, given the type of right-back we have. Now, if Trent leaves, he may prefer a more defensive right-back than an attacking left-back, but for now, I think that's the back four I'd love to see. Trent, Ibu, Virgil, and Lukeba.
Have you seen much of him actually at left back? Because I know he played there a couple of times, but last season, but whether or not he did for Lyon previously to that.
Played there a couple of times last season, played there a couple of times for Lyon. He's moved there in-game probably more than he started there.
Yeah.
I've seen him play there for the French 21s, but again, it was more of an in-game change. But he has played a lot in a back three on the left side, so it's not a big departure from that. And we saw at the weekend Andy Robertson, a much more controlled, disciplined display, playing a lot in a back three with Trent moving forward and Robbo holding with Ibu and Virgil. And I think as the shape progresses towards more of what Arne wants, I do think we'll see that more and more. We saw a lot of it with Feyenoord. And I just think Lukeba would fit really well.
So then the other question we would need to ask in terms of his actual quality, I suppose, and his actual traits and everything else, his aerials are not tremendous. For quite a strong guy, and yeah, he's young and all the rest of it, but he actually doesn't really win too much in the air. Would you have that as a big problem? Because I think part of the reason for obviously playing a more central defensive type player as the extra fullback is if you're going to lose out anything in on the ball terms, you absolutely want to gain it defensively, and especially with crossfield passes and how we've sometimes had issues defending the back post and so on. If he's not immense in the air, is that a big enough concern for you?
It's not, because I've seen quite a few centre-backs who struggle in the air as a centre-back, who go out to the flank and dominate in the air. And I'll give you two examples. Ben White, very poor in the air as a centre-back, very dominant in the air as a right-back. You very rarely, because two things. Number one, longer track of the ball, so easier to get your position. Number two, generally going up against smaller players than you are as a centre-back. You'll rarely find a 6-foot-plus winger. There are a few, obviously. Semenyo, Morgan Rogers when he plays wide.
Jonathan Walters.
Yeah, you know. But there's not a Jonathan Walters rocking around the Premier League right now. And as I look up and down the Premier League at right wingers, there isn't really, other than Semenyo, there isn't really a physical presence there. So Ben White has done, I think, significantly better in the air since moving to right back than he ever did at centre back, either for Arsenal or for Brighton or prior to that at Leeds. And I look at Joe Gomez, Karl, and when Joe played centre back for us, the knock on him always was he's not great in the air. If Joe was better in the air, he would have been the perfect centre back for us for a number of years, but he wasn't. But last season, he played quite a bit of football at left back, and we saw quite the spike in his aerial win rate. Because again, he's going up against smaller players. It's easier to track the ball when it's coming all the way across the pitch or when it's coming all the way down from the goalkeeper, and you're going against a smaller player. Plus, I also think at fullback, you can maybe challenge sometimes for aerials when you're not 100% certain you can win them, because you're not running the risk of the ball going behind you over your head and a striker being immediately in on goal. At fullback, you've got a bit more protection because you do have a centre-back who can come across if you tend to go for something. If you do a Dejan Lovren and you go for a ball you can't win, and the ball goes over your head, it's going to the corner, and you've got a centre-back that can come out and cover. So I think you can be a bit more aggressive playing as a fullback than you can as a centre-back as well.
Well, you would certainly benefit from that uptick then, because I think extremely low is the best way to regard his aerials. But a lot of the other defensive work, as we have seen, is particularly good. So if you were expecting them to play a 3 or a 4 against us at the back?
I think a 3 probably. So probably Klosterman, Urban and Lukeba with Gertrude and either Rom or Nusa as
Rom's out.
Oh, Rom is out, isn't he? Yeah, he is. So Nusa then probably is the left wing back.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check you have the tickets in your wallet first before you drive 2 hours to the big game. Seriously, you had one job. Now the closest you'll get to the 50-yard line is parking lot D. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
It feels like you can get your credit scores anywhere these days. Random websites, card statements, budgeting apps, heck, even your dog might bark out a few numbers. It's true. Credit Karma isn't the only place you can find them. But we actually do more with your scores to help you find your next financial opportunity. Like a more rewarding credit card, a game plan that helps you pay down debt faster, or a personal loan to help you save more on interest payments each month. Cha-ching! The possibilities are kinda endless. Download Intuit Credit Karma today to get started.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 45% off select styles. Rules and restrictions may apply.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. Ha. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Midfield, again, you've got just tons of talent. Elif Elmas is a really good player who's barely getting a look in this season. Amadou Haidara, like you said, he's been there, I think, since 2019. He was one that they plucked at a very young age, was at Salzburg for a couple of years. When he moved across, I think he was looked at as like in the same kind of way as a Naby, where we'll have him for a year or two and we're going to sell him for huge money. It took him a few years to really find his feet at Leipzig and overcome some injury issues, but he's been great for them now for a couple of years. Nicholas Seevold is a good player. Christoph Baumgartner is a good player. Arthur Vermeuren's very talented. Javier Schlager hasn't even played yet this season. He's another good one. Ouedraogo's a good one. Kevin Campbell barely gets a look in anymore. He's okay. I'm not a huge fan, but he's experienced. He's tough. He's wily. It's a strong group of midfielders. The one thing with the midfield, though, is other than Haidara, he doesn't seem to have settled on a midfield combination yet this year. Like, the defence has been fairly settled. The three attackers, we'll get on to them, fairly settled. But the midfield has been, other than Haidara, heavily rotated. I assume fitness, keeping players fresh, different looks for different shapes, different combinations work in different setups. But they've got good depth there, and you know, you can throw Nusa in. He's played in a bunch of different positions, though he obviously is primarily a winger. It's a very strong group of midfielders.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot to pick from there. And we were talking about Chelsea, obviously, last week, in the way that they can change up completely the way that they attack in the second half if they want, with all the changes. And Leipzig have kind of got the same in midfield. They can change the way that they defend or instigate their build-up play by altering the shape, as we've already spoken about, but now also the playing staff, let's say, in the centre of the pitch. If you've got a Vermeer and take your pick, Haidara, like you've said as well, in there, that's a very, very different pairing to if you've got Klosterman push forward, because he's still played in midfield a couple of times. If you've got Trida there where he's already been, if you've had Seewald in there, if Campbell comes off the bench, that's much more of a quick movement of the ball, looking to link up with Xavi Simons, who's ahead of them. He can play wider, obviously, so there's loads and loads of potential for build-up play there. I'm, if anything, more surprised that Baumgartner doesn't get more of a look in than he has done so far.
Same. I think he's really, really good. And it does surprise me that he's not like one of the first names in the team sheet every week. The attack then.
Literal.
Yeah, I mean, so you've mentioned Xavi Simons, and obviously a very, very talented player. I do think there's times when he does struggle to impact games because maybe he lacks a bit of physicality. He doesn't have kind of explosive pace the way you see in a lot of smaller players. Like, if I look at him and I look at, say, Florian Wirtz, similar type of build, Wirtz has an ability to get away from people over a short distance that I don't think Simons really has. But he's obviously a very, very gifted player. And then there's the other two. So the one that gets most of the hype is Benjamin Sesko. And there's good reason for that. He's a very talented young striker, only 21, 6'5", good hold-up play, an absolute rocket launcher at the end of his leg that just pings balls into the top corner with minimal effort. Another one that they brought through the Salzburg Liefering system, similar to Dom, been linked obviously to United, to Arsenal, to Chelsea, to a bunch of other clubs. Not long for Leipzig, we can be certain. But I do think when I watch them play, the one that interests me more is Openda for us. There's something about his game that I really like. And when I look at his career path, he comes through at Club Brugge. He goes on loan to Vitesse Arnhem for 2 years, gets better both years, moves on to loans, gets even better, stepping up a division, moves to Leipzig, and again kicks on to another new level at a higher level of competition. I really like this guy's game, and he's the one I'm most concerned by going into this game. He's the one that worries me the most.
Yeah, I mean, it's not often that you go up directly against a two-man attack anymore anyway, regardless of whether the starting system they've played a sort of box midfield they've played with the three at the back, like we're saying, really, really two up front. Sesko maybe is the one who drops off a little bit more and sort of will operate a little bit in the hole and try to link play a little bit better, but basically it's a two-man attack, even if they're split a little bit more. I think this is quite a big challenge, actually, because a lot of the time we're going to not necessarily leave ourselves 1v1 at the back, 2v2, but it will be a lot of the time one-on-one for the centre-backs in build-up play when we're obviously in sustained periods of defensive work, as we will be away from home. And there's no extra spare person there. There's nobody to step out of the line and challenge for an extra aerial. You can't leave Sesko or challenge with Sesko and let Openda run in behind, or you have to go with them. It is a very different kind of task for our front two this time. But as you said at the beginning, they've not exactly been outrageous scorers of goals so far this season.
No.
6 between them in the Bundesliga, and as a team, obviously not scoring loads, 11 and 7. So, like I said, it's not completely what you would normally expect from a Marco Rose team. I don't think they're still maybe working out a few kinks in terms of the best way to fit everybody in. And like we said, there's some who are not in the team yet, like Baumgartner. He's seems to be the one who's kind of pushed out at the moment.
Yeah, he seems to be like the reliable sub that they bring on rather than a starter. He's only made 2 starts in his 9 appearances thus far. The thing with the front two as well is it's not like a thing where they rock up and kind of one of them walks towards one centre-back and the other goes towards the other, and that's the matchup. And the centre-back can look at them and think, okay, I've got Openda here. I know his game. I know what I need to do in each and every attack. And likewise, if it's Ibu up against Sesko, he knows what he needs to do because they will switch. And like you said, there'll be moments where Sesko will drop that bit deeper and Openda will move into almost a lone striker role with a 1-on-1. But there's also times where Openda will drop to pick the ball up to feet and look to move from there. And then you're dealing with Sesko trying to run off and play from there. You'll see at times where Xavi Simons will move up and almost form a front three with them. And that works with either Openda through the middle or Sesko through the middle. It's more effective, I think, with Sesko through the middle and Openda playing in the channel between fullback and centre-back because he's got that explosive pace and that ability to get his shot away very, very quickly. He reminds me in some ways in his ability to generate power with not a ton of backlift. He reminds me a little bit of Daniel Sturridge. But his game is quite unique. There's a little bit of Sadio about him in that he's absolutely relentless and will make those runs over and over and over again and doesn't let up. And even if he's not playing well, he's still a handful to deal with. And obviously, Sesko, when you're dealing with that combination of size, technical ability, strength, power, and explosiveness, like they do present a really unique task for our two to deal with. And then obviously you've got the Xavi Simons factor. He's going to pop up here, there, and everywhere. There's going to be times where he'll pop up on the right, and Andy Robertson's going to have to switch on to the fact, okay, he's coming into my area. He's going to drift to the left, and Trent is going to have to pick him up. He's going to play in behind the front two, and Gravenberch is going to have to be aware to the fact that I have to pick him up now. Because Virgil or Ibu cannot step out to deal with him because they've got two up top. So we're going to need to be very, very switched on here. We're going to need to understand the rotations, keep track of players, and not allow them to move us out of our defensive shape and exploit any kind of gap, which is what they will look to do. It's one of the things that Marco Rose has always looked to do, is create gaps in defenses and punish them with pace, with movement. They're a good team. They're going to present difficult, unusual threats. As you mentioned, very rare you see teams play with 2 up front, and very rare you see teams play up front with 2 pretty big guys. I mean, I know Openda's not the tallest guy in the world. I think he's like 5'10", 5'11", but he's not like a slender little whippet of a fella. He is powerful. He has no problem getting physical with a centre-back. This is going to be tough.
How tough do you think? Bearing in mind that we've got to play Leverkusen, let's look at this in Champions League terms for Liverpool. Leverkusen we've been looking at along with Real Madrid as being the 2 toughest opponents. That's obviously earlier in the season still. It's only, well, I suppose in Germany they play fewer games, so about a quarter of the way through their campaign now. 3 points between them. Leverkusen are 4th, Leipzig is 2nd, joint top if you like with Bayern. And as you say, unbeaten domestically. So how much of a difficult test do you expect this to be, given if we went into the game against Leverkusen before Leipzig, we were probably looking at that as our 2nd toughest fixture?
Yeah, like, I mean, Leverkusen have not looked nearly as good this season as they did last year. Defensively, they do not look particularly good. They've already conceded 13 goals to their 7 league games, but they look pretty dynamite going forward. Whereas Leipzig don't look nearly as good going forward, but have been great defensively. And the funny thing is, when I look at the individual personnel of Leverkusen, I would prefer their defensive players, but I would prefer Leipzig's forward players. Now, I would take Wirtz over Xavi Simons, but my combined front three from those two teams would be Wirtz plus the Leipzig front two, Sesko and Openda. So it's a weird thing where the team that I think has the better attacking players does not have the better attack, and the team where I think they have the better defensive players don't have the better defense so far. And obviously, they haven't played exactly the same schedule. They've played different teams. They've played, different strengths of schedule. But I think based on what we've seen thus far this season, I think they're about a wash. You said, like you said, there's 3 points between them in the league this season. I think they're about equal strength right now. I think Alonso probably has more to the tactical side of his game than Marco Rose, but Marco Rose is a good manager. Like, it's not that long ago, Marco Rose looked like he was going to be someone that when Jurgen decided to leave Liverpool, and this is going back, 4 or 5 years, when he was still at Salzburg, before, I suppose when he first went to Borussia Mönchengladbach and things were going really well, he was somebody who we talked about as potentially someone you'd have on your shortlist to replace Jurgen. Now, he went to Gladbach, ended badly because it was announced mid-season that he was going to Dortmund. Dortmund didn't go particularly well for him, and it took him a little bit of time to find his feet at Salzburg. But ultimately, he's gone there. He's won the German Cup with a team that obviously included Dom. And he won the Super Cup last season. And now he's starting to really put it together in the league. I think he's a very good manager. I don't think he's going to be an elite level manager the way Alonso could potentially become. But I do think he is very good.
Hey guys, it's Eddie Gibbs from Anfield Index here. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I'm sorry to call time on the show before it ends. In the current climate, it's tougher than ever before to offer podcasts for free. At Anfield Index, we produce over 75 free shows every month, which I'm confident is unparalleled in the LFC sphere. Whilst we'd love to offer everything for free, the production costs now make this impossible. That said, we don't want to follow the model of other channels and lock all of our content behind a paywall. So what we've decided to do is to continue offering every show for free, but cut that offering to 30 minutes on our longer shows. So to get all of our shows in full and enjoy the best of everything we have to offer, we really hope you'll consider supporting the channel and signing up at AnfieldIndexPro.com. For about the price of 1 cup of coffee, you'll get every podcast in full with 0 ads. You'll also get access to our LFC VIP community, where you can enjoy live podcasts, engage with our podcasters, and chat with other Reds in real time. So that website again, AnfieldIndexPro.com. Join today.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.